Xbox finally took a step in the right direction. What's up, y'all, and welcome to Xbox Ready, my YouTube channel that is all about Xbox. I get on here multiple times a week to talk the latest Xbox news, rumors, pretty much anything I want to talk about as long as it's about Xbox in some way. And in today's video, we're gonna try something a little bit different. It's always kind of a little bit different every time this dude is on, Mr. Jimmy Champagne. He's always like causing a ruckus, causing controversy, pissing off my fans. But as you can see, I got a desk now. I'm trying out a different setup. And in today's video, we're gonna be talking about the Xbox stuff because duh, this is an Xbox channel. But we're also gonna be talking about a variety of things as well. People really seem to like this conversational podcast, two bros hanging out, talking about gaming format. So we're gonna try to make it more like that. And to start off with, the major news today is Xbox's presence at Tokyo Game Show. Now, I live in California. I am on Pacific Standard Time, so the Xbox show was at 3 a.m. this morning. I was not awake. I'm sorry, y'all. I like Xbox. You know, you could even say that I love Xbox, but I also love sleeping. Jimmy is in a much more reasonable time zone from when that started, so I was like, hey, can you just keep an eye out for anything that might happen? There was rumors that Final Fantasy 16 was gonna be announced for Xbox. So like, if anything crazy happens, can you just like give me a ring and let me know so I can get up and make some content about it? And luckily he did just that. He was keeping me up to date on everything that was going on. So let's talk about it, because this is an area that Xbox, going into this generation, they were wanting to improve. They were like, you know what, we don't have the best track record in Japan. We have this history of Japanese publishers skipping over our platform entirely. And they were like, you know what, this generation, that's gonna change. We're gonna put in the work and we're gonna rewrite history, go into the future on a positive note for any Xbox fans that want to play JRPGs and other games being published out of the East, a chance to play on Xbox. Now, leading up to Tokyo Game Show, there was a lot of crazy rumors being thrown around. That's pretty standard, I guess, for any show that Xbox does or any platform holder does. People were saying, oh, they're gonna reveal the Xbox version of Black Myth Wukong. Oh, it could even show up on Game Pass. Oh, Final Fantasy 16, they're definitely gonna announce it for Xbox. No, there's no Xbox version of Black Myth Wukong, no Xbox version of Final Fantasy 16, but the relationship between Xbox and Square Enix did take a major step forward after today, because a number of their titles that were not on Xbox are going to be on Xbox, and they're going to be on Game Pass as well. The most notable of which is the Pixel remasters, Final Fantasy 1 through 6. Now, I know people were really excited about Final Fantasy 16, and you know, that's like a flashy, newer game, so I get why people would want that over the Pixel remasters, but still a great lineup of games. And it opens the door for games like Final Fantasy 16, like the Final Fantasy 7 remakes, to eventually make their way over to Xbox, which is just so weird. Can we just acknowledge that that's just, I don't know, it's weird to me because I grew up associating Final Fantasy games with PlayStation. When I first got into Final Fantasy, I played 7 on the PS1, I played 10 and 10-2 on the PS2. Once the Lightning came around, I was playing on the PS3. It's just something I always associated with PlayStation. But times are changing, and I think it's for the better. But Jim, as a PlayStation dude, what are your thoughts on this?
I think it's good. I think Square Enix is quickly going to realize that the problem for them wasn't necessarily the lack of platform support, which it's still good, right, that they're putting it on Xbox. But I think the problems that they've been having lately is because of the lack of identity for Final Fantasy. Like, people didn't really dig the action combat in 15, so they doubled down on it. Performance issues were crazy with 16. Like on the PS5, it never holds a rock solid 60 unless you're in the smaller fights, and then it's always dropping to like 40 if you're in the open world. And then they released the PC port recently, and I don't want to say it's like, it's not emblematic of the port this time. The port seems to be decent. It's just the game as a whole is not optimized. Like, it runs about as bad as it does on PS5 on PC. Like, if you have a 4090, you can't even get native 4K 60 FPS with the best graphics card on the market. So I feel like they're kind of addressing one problem while ignoring a bigger problem, which is like the lack of optimization and just like not really listening to their audience, because, you know, they've made this huge push into action heavy games to capture people who don't play Final Fantasy, and it didn't really pay off. And then you've got games like Metaphor ReFantazio and Persona 5 that just absolutely explode and dominate, even with the same audience that they're chasing by moving to action. And that's a hardcore turn-based game. Like Persona 3 Reloaded had the best opening week of any Persona game yet. So like, I feel like they need to work on optimization and listening to their fans in addition to what they're already doing on Xbox. But yeah, I don't know if that game's going to sell very well on Xbox, even when it does come out, because it underperformed on PS5 and it's underperforming on PC. So like, I don't think the magic bullet is the Xbox audience, you know?
It does make me wonder, like, you know, Pixel remasters, that's probably an easy port from PlayStation, PC to Xbox. Final Fantasy 16, I'm a little worried about, especially like, you know, if you are in the camp of, oh, you know, people are having trouble optimizing for the Series S, and that's what's preventing games from blah, 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 this, and that.
Dude, I don't think that game would run on the Series S, honestly. Because the Steam Deck's not really comparable to the Series S. The Series S is much more powerful, but like, I mean, you're running it at 800p at the lowest settings on Steam Deck, and you're not even getting 25 FPS. So like, when you're running at 800p on the Steam Deck, it is fairly equivalent to the PS4 and Xbox One, and kind of gets close to the PS4 Pro and Xbox One X. Not necessarily like on the level, but it's like approaching that. So you can kind of use that as a little bit of a barometer for the Series S. And like with the optimized state that game's in the sense that it's not optimized, I think they would have a lot of trouble porting it over to the Series S specifically.
And like Jim is saying, I mean, even if Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster is not your thing, we're living in an age now where those aren't the only Japanese published games that are available to you as an Xbox fan, especially on Game Pass. If you're on Ultimate, you got Octopath Traveler 1 and 2. You got P3 Reload, which is fantastic. I don't know how they did it, but P3, P5, they made turn-based combat cool again. They made having a part-time job in a game for some reason fun. I don't know how they did it. Maybe it's like the cool soundtrack, maybe it's just the vibe, I don't know, but they did it. So if Final Fantasy, the direction that they're going in, is not your cup of tea, there are plenty of alternatives out there. And also, I did get to play ReFantazio Metaphor at Gamescom. That's going to be fantastic too. That's going to be on Game Pass. And there's also a couple of other exciting things that may have flown under the radar as part of this show as well. StarCraft 1 and 2, it's going to be added to PC Game Pass. There's still no console version of it yet, but they're slowly and surely adding more of that Blizzard Activision catalog to Game Pass, which was, in my opinion, the coolest part about the acquisition in the first place.
Yeah, StarCraft 1 and 2 would be fun to play. I didn't even remember that they remastered StarCraft 1, and I was like, StarCraft remastered? I didn't even know that released. So yeah, getting that for free if you don't already own it is cool, like for free on a subscription. I feel like console ports are kind of out of the question for both of those games because it would take a lot of work, right? Like they'd have to it's not like those games don't have controller support already on PC. So it wouldn't be just a straight port. It would have to be like the Diablo 3 console versions, which are like completely different games with offline modes and stuff. So I don't know if they'll do that unless, you know, they see a big uptick in users with the games on Game Pass on PC. But it would be cool. I feel like they need to exploit that IP more and get like an action-based shooter or something like they were developing back in the day out for StarCraft, because that's been really neglected for a long time.
On a separate note, if you're an RTS dude and you're on PC Game Pass, you're eating good. All of the Age of Empires games, Age of Mythology Retold, and they just released new content for that, a new pantheon for that at this show. There's also Manor Lords, there's also Halo Wars, Gears Tactics, Crusader Kings. Well, that's not an RTS game. That's a strategy game. RTS games, Game Pass, suddenly there's like an explosion of options if you are looking to get into that genre. What do you, I don't think I've talked to you about this on the channel since the PS5 Pro was announced. They did that whole thing. What do you think? Should Xbox have done a mid-gen refresh, or are they chilling?
I think they're good just because they have that 30% power increase over the PS5, and they haven't had much trouble getting 60 FPS out of games that don't run at 60 on the PS5. Like two very notable ones that I really enjoyed were Alan Wake 2, that ran at mostly 60 FPS on Xbox with higher graphic settings, whereas it ran using FSR2, upscaling it from a very low resolution at like 40 FPS most of the time on PS5. And now Space Marine 2, same situation. It runs at a locked 60 on Xbox and runs at like 40 to 60 at any given time on PS5. And I'm assuming that it just got better with today's patch, because before we were recording, I jumped in on PC where I've been having trouble getting it to hold 60 and it was completely fixed. So maybe it's fixed on PS5 as well. But for the first 2 or 3 weeks that you've been able to play that game, it's been a great experience on the Xbox. So yeah, I think the PS5 Pro was more necessary than a mid-gen refresh on Xbox. And moving on from the Series X gen just feels smart at this point after we talked about those numbers last week. Especially if they're working on a handheld, which we'll talk about in a little bit, just like, put it in the rear view. I feel like if they did launch a mid-gen and then in next year or the year after they launched the next gen console, people would be so mad. You did right by your audience by not doing a mid-gen refresh, and then you're just doing a sooner next gen refresh.
So with Xbox, a handheld is top of mind for a lot of people. I've been thinking about it lately because, well, they just rolled out the September update and they have the new compact mode for the Windows game bar. So a handheld is top of mind for me. What says the dude who has a whole channel dedicated to gaming handhelds?
I'm really excited for the next generation, mainly because both Xbox, Sony, and Valve will have new stuff, right? And the Switch 2. Like, there's a huge handheld war coming, basically, which is great because that's going to encourage all of those companies to really make sure that they're consumer focused, right? Because the one that has the best experience is going to win. I think the Steam Deck and the Sony one have the best shot, really, because the Sony one, if you didn't hear this, which, if you're watching Xbox Ready, you probably didn't. A lot of people were thinking that they were just going to downclock the PS5 chip for that, but what it turns out they're doing is 2 PS6 SoCs, so system on a chip. So they're basically making 2 versions of the PS6 chip, and one of them, people are theorizing, is going to be for a handheld. So if we get a handheld that can run your PS4 games, your PS5 games, and maybe your PS6 games, or at the very least can stream them like the PS Portal does, and then you get the other generations natively, that's going to be really cool for people who have a big built-up PlayStation library. But then Xbox also having a next-gen handheld that's going to work in tandem with the console, that's going to work out great because they have insurance built in with Game Pass, where if you didn't spend the Xbox Series X generation and Xbox One generation building up an Xbox library, pay $29 a month, you have the library right there. Nintendo, apparently they're doing backwards compatibility with the Switch 2, which also just leaked and the hardware looks pretty good. So they'll have the whole library carrying forward. And then Steam, with the Steam Deck, you have Steam. So like you have every PC game you've ever bought forever, which is great.
It reminds me a little bit about when Xbox first launched. I mean, if they are going to be making this handheld, which, there's a lot of signs that they will for this next generation lineup, they're going up against PlayStation, who's had a handheld, a couple in the market before. They're going up against Nintendo, which, handhelds their bread and butter for the past several decades. Steam Deck, which, they're a newer player, but over the past couple of years, they've gained a lot of ground in the handheld gaming market. And then you have Xbox, who they do have a lot of this IP and they have, a lot of advantages going into this fight, but they've never had a handheld before. And looking back on how they really made a mark for themselves as a console back in 2001, it was because of their exclusive games. They were like, let's make Halo Combat Evolved, and that's the only place where you can play the game is on an Xbox, and then people will therefore buy Xboxes, and it worked. So I'm wondering, now that they're kind of moving away from, they're having less and less exclusive games, we don't know what the strategy is totally, but I'm wondering like what is going to be that killer factor for them that makes people go, damn, I really want an Xbox handheld over the other 3 that are going to be potentially on the market.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be people who like Game Pass on PC or Xbox, right? They're going to want to take that library on the go. There's this weird situation where Xbox and Microsoft, mainly, like their parent company, Microsoft, have this new kind of chip called an ARM chip. They've been around for a while, but now they're actually good. And that's more like the Mac chips, like the M series chips or the A series chips for the iPhones. And they have an emulation layer for PC, so you won't have to have native ARM games. You can run like regular x86 PC games, but Valve is working on a version of Proton, which is the emulation layer that Linux uses to run Windows games, that will work on ARM. So if Xbox comes out and says, oh, our Xbox games will be able to take advantage of more features on ARM chips emulating these games through our own native way, Valve will have a way to kind of fight that by saying, well, our Proton also does that, and we can just use that instead of using Xbox's native ARM emulation. So it's really interesting. I'm mostly curious to see how PC like the Xbox handheld is, because I feel like that's going to give it a big edge over the Nintendo Switch 2 and the PlayStation handheld, because the PlayStation 1 is going to be locked down like crazy, right? It's just going to be a portable PS6. It's not going to be like a PC that you can take on the go like the Steam Deck and the eventual Xbox.
A handheld console war. What a in time to be alive. I didn't think it would come to this point, 10 years ago, but here we are. You brought up the Switch 2, or like whatever the next Nintendo console is gonna be. I was thinking about that recently because I saw this story that was like, oh, Minecraft is finally coming to PlayStation 5. The assumption is that Minecraft is coming to PlayStation or PS5 because Xbox, Mojang, they have their hands on the dev kits now. And it reminded me of another situation that popped up for me and Jim. This would have been like, what, Jim, like late 2022?
Yeah, I think so.
To someone at Xbox who was like, yeah, Mojang, Minecraft, it's so big on Nintendo, specifically the Switch, we have some decent knowledge about their next console. And that's why they were so confident in their ability to make Call of Duty run on a Nintendo console. May not be the Switch, could be this next-gen Nintendo console that they're going to be coming out with. But because of Minecraft, they knew about, or at least the beginnings of, the Switch 2 or whatever it's going to be called. And now we're starting to get these leaks, and I pray for the soul of the person that leaked the Switch 2
The
stuff.
Chinese factory
Just
worker,
seeing
he's
how
like fearing for his life right now.
He's fearing for his life. Like, Nintendo will go after their own super fans, with like the music library and the emulation, suing the freaking crap out of Pocket Pair, the studio behind Pal World. I'm praying for whoever leaked the Switch 2 stuff. So, like, what are your thoughts about these Switch 2 leaks? Again, as the foremost expert on handheld gaming, at least on the PC side.
The biggest reason I'm excited for the Switch 2 is mainly because I've been saving a lot of recent Switch games for it, because hopefully they'll run better. I saw this new Zelda game. I was kind of interested in it, and then I saw the reviews, how they're all 9s and 10s. I was like, oh, cool, this looks great. And then I watched a gameplay of it, and I don't like buying into conspiracies, but the amount of goodwill and just extra points Nintendo gets for being Nintendo is absolutely insane. With the performance of that game, there's no reality in which it should be scraping 10s, right? Like, I feel like you should lose points for performance, because it looks like, just being frank, it runs like shit. So if this new console comes out and can run these games at either 30 or 60 FPS, at least consistently, I feel like that's going to make me actually want to get this thing. But I don't know, man. I haven't been playing a lot of Switch since I got the Steam Deck, and I am like shocked at how little I miss it. Like, I skipped Tears of the Kingdom because it looked like more Breath of the Wild. I'm skipping the Zelda game. The only one that could really pull me back in is Metroid Prime 4, but outside of that, I've been living a Nintendo-less life, and I don't really feel too bad about it, honestly.
I mean, if you're not into the Nintendo IP, then there's no reason why you should be living a Nintendo life. The only reason why I have my Switch is for Fire Emblem. Any new Fire Emblem games that come out, I play them, for better or for worse. Three Houses, dope. Engage, pretty fun from a gameplay perspective, but the story and like, I don't know, I wasn't crazy about the main characters. But like these Switch 2 leaks, I mean, it does look like another Switch. It looks thinner, it looks a little bit wider. Questionable USB-C port placement as far as these pictures go. But also we've been hearing that these leaks were either made by like a 3D rendering model enthusiast. There's a lot of questions being raised about these leaks and their legitimacy.
That doesn't make me very skeptical after the PS5 Slim and PS5 Pro leaks, because that's exactly how it happened. Like someone saw the Slim and made a 3D render and it was spot on. And that happened like a month ago with the PS5 Pro as well. So like
it really was spot on. Like it
was exactly right. And like some guy drew a picture of it that was flawless too. I mean, I feel like if you were really guessing, you could have got to the PS5 Pro design, because it seems like a joke, right? Like it's like, oh, it's just a PS5 Slim with an extra line. But when it's that obvious, I feel like people never really get to that, you know, like they go crazy with the whole redesign and stuff like that. But yeah, it looks like a Switch, and we've heard that it's going to have magnetic locking instead of having rails like this regular Switch 1. So getting that in the render makes a lot of sense. I'm just curious how it's going to run games, right? Like that's all that really matters to me at the end of the day, because I don't screw around with, you know, dumping my Switch games to my PC so I can run them on Steam Deck. Like it's just too much work, man. And I'd rather just have a console that can run them well, and I can just go to the store, buy the copy, bring it home, pop it in, maybe update it, and just be good to go.
Third-party multi-platform games on the Switch is crazy. Like that, the new Mortal Kombat is just like, why did they even bother, bro? What is going on? Overwatch on Switch too. Even I'm like, oh man, this is kind of rough, buddy. I don't know why they bother, but like, I'm gonna buy whatever the next gen Nintendo is, because, well, my wife is gonna want to play the next iteration of Animal Crossing, the next iteration of Smash, whatever new Fire Emblem games come out. Like, they've made a case for people to own it just for those franchises, for better or for worse. In terms of the leaks, could go either way. PS5 Pro one, spot on. The Xbox ones that we got like end of 2023, maybe at one point they were real, but they were like, no, we're not really doing it. I guess we did get a digital Series X, but that is about it.
That pricing on the spray painted Xbox Series X is nuts.
$600, baby.
Like, I don't know, man. Like, I get that you're getting better performance on a PS5, but like, it just sucks that we're in this world where they can't even do a price cut on the regular PS5 or the Xbox Series X. Like, I'd love to see a model of that has more storage that costs the same, if not cheaper, you know?
Yeah, or on the Xbox side, give us the option, like you do on PlayStation, to, you know, buy other types of SSDs, like outside of this freaking like Seagate or WD Digital. Like it's getting a little ridiculous. I do like my Seagate card, it's very convenient, but if I had the option to pop the hood open and install my own SSD like you can on a PS5, I would have much preferred that, because a terabyte of storage for the PS5, you can find it like 60, 70, 80 bucks.
Yeah, seriously, I've seen them go as low as like 50. And then with 2 terabytes, I've seen them go as low as like 120 at certain points, like 127. I'm gonna be taking the 2 terabyte out of my Slim and putting it in my Pro, so then I'll have 4 terabytes of storage, which should be enough. And I got an upgrade lately. I've been using the Elgato to capture footage, and people really seem to like it, so I won't have to use so much of my space to record gameplay.
Anyways, guys, let's wrap up there. That is all of the Xbox and gaming stuff that we have to talk about today. If you like this kind of extended format type situation, let us know in the comments and we'll do more for sure. Thanks again for joining us for another edition of Xbox Ready, and we'll see you in the next video. Please, if you haven't already, subscribe. Thanks.
Bye.